والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والذين جاهدوا فينا لنهدينهم سبلنا سبحان ربك رب العزة أما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. Before the month of Ramadan, I along with my family had the opportunity to spend some time in the company of Shaykh Zulfikar, and as is usually my routine, when we get that opportunity, I try to share the lessons that we learned during these types of opportunities with everyone, so that everyone can benefit from that experience. And there were many things that I was able to observe and learn. We're constantly learning, obviously, but there were many things that I observed and learned from that trip, and inshallah maybe over the next subsequent days to weeks we'll share some of that. In this particular trip we happened to go to South Africa, and the purpose of this trip was basically dawah. Shaykh Zulfikar, he had taken out 2.5 weeks from his busy schedule, and his goal was to spend that 2.5 weeks with the people of South Africa, with the Muslim community of South Africa. And he had intended during that period of time to essentially visit as many places as possible in South Africa in that 2.5 week period. Literally, from the moment that we arrived till the moment that we departed, I can't remember sitting in one place for more than just a handful of hours. We saw the whole country. We were by plane, by car. We basically would go from small masjid to small masjid to small masjid to small masjid to big masjid to madrasa to this to that to home to home to home. It was just a continuous, non-stop. Every opportunity that came, Shaykh Zulfikar would take it in order to serve the people of that region. So when we first arrived, the very first few days of the itinerary was a lot of driving. Maybe we must have driven, some 30-40 hours in the first 2 to 3 days. It was very much driving. And basically we arrived in Johannesburg, and the next morning, literally, we took off and we began to drive to small places within South Africa where there was any pocket of Muslims. And the first thing that sort of hit me was that when we arrived, I had arrived a day before, and I had the opportunity during that time while I was there to interact with the Muslim community of Johannesburg, and I can tell you that it's a very large Muslim community, and it's a very developed Muslim community. I could even very comfortably say that it is the most advanced Muslim community as far as minorities are concerned, probably in the whole world. Maybe you could make the exception that India, there's Muslims and they're a minority, but they were in the majority. They were in the ruled for so many years that it's almost a derivative of that rule that they happened to establish what they were able to establish. But this is a true minority, 2% of the population. They came there and they were never the rulers there, and they have not been the rulers there. Yet they were able to preserve and establish their deen in a way that was very unique. And there are many things I could say about that, and perhaps we would say that at another time. But sort of the first thing when we arrived, I didn't know what the itinerary was going to be. And my first impression was, okay, we're going to spend the next 2 weeks right here. Because there's so many masajid. I mean, easily there's 400, 500 masajid there. Every little corner had a masjid, and it was packed, and there were people regularly coming, and it was very active and vibrant. And so my impression was, we're going to spend the whole time here. And that evening, later on that evening, the person who was hosting Shaykh Zulfikar, he said, can you please come here? I want to run the itinerary by you so that you know everything that's going to be going on. And he brought me this folder, thick folder of papers, and I opened it, and I'm looking page after page after page after page. We're going to all these different places, and I'm thinking, why are we going to all these places? There's so much that can be done right here. And then it was only then that I still didn't appreciate exactly how many places we were going to go and what type of trip this was going to be, but I started getting an impression that we're really going to be traveling a lot. And so the way that the itinerary was designed was that during the daytime, on occasion, not all days, but on some select days, Shaykh Zulfikar had planned that we would see the blessings of Allah. This was like one theme of the trip, to see Allah's creation and to see the Jalal of Allah, the Jamal of Allah. That was a very, very consistent theme. And that if you've studied any geography, that South Africa is very rich in many, many natural places of beauty. For example, there's jungle there, there's safaris there, there's animals there, lions, etc., and they're all just in their natural game reserves. So this was one sort of theme of the journey. It wasn't the major theme, but it was a derivative, you can say. So I was looking at the itinerary, and there were some days that we were going to visit this game park or that game park or this very beautiful scenic place or that beautiful scenic place. And then sort of that theme, the trip, was sort of scattered in between this visiting of multiple masajid and cities in order to visit these communities. So we got in the car that first day, literally the next morning after he arrived, and then before Fajr. Essentially, we prayed Fajr right there. Very, very, very beginning of the time, we prayed Fajr. Everything was packed in the car the night before, and we were on the go. So we get in the car, and we start driving, and we're driving through jungle and through open plains, and where are we going? I'm still trying to figure out how there even can be Muslims where we're going. So we're going, and finally we get to a small city where there's one masjid and maybe 100 to 150 families. So we get there, and then right when we arrive, it's just there's going to be a program after Dhuhr, and the program after Dhuhr is going to is immediate. Yani we just arrived there, and there's just about 20-30 minutes of rest. Okay, so people figure out that Shaykh Zulfikar is coming, and they want him. They know, or they have this impression, and they're smart to this extent, that they know that this is a righteous, pious person, and they have needs, and so they want him to make dua. They want him to come to their businesses or come to their homes or whatever it might be. They just want a dua. They want an opportunity to get a dua from him. So the first place we're going, and we pull over at this hardware store. Right before, just an hour before this talk. We pull over at the hardware store, and then Shaykh Zulfikar, he says, okay, a few brothers come in, tells the families to wait in the cars. And he goes in, and then he goes into the office, and you go into this office, and there's this big hardware store. You go into the office, and in the office you see Allah and all the Bismillah and Alhamdulillah, and you say, okay, so this is a Muslim's hardware store. And he says, please make dua for my hardware store. So then Shaykh Zulfikar takes time. Now, there's not that much time because we have to go and have to give talks. And I'm looking at the clock myself and wondering, how much time can we chit-chat? And he's sitting and asking, how are you? And how are things? And giving this person all this attention. So, anyway, that's the habit of the mashayikh. They squeeze something out of nothing, and they make their time very valuable. So anyway, they have their conversations, and whatever the host is very happy. And then at the end he says, okay, now we should make dua. So then he makes dua for this person's business. Then this person says, well, now you have to come to my house and you have to have tea. I'm thinking, tea? We don't have time for tea. What is this guy talking about? First of all, Shaykh Zulfikar doesn't even drink tea. And second of all, we don't have time for tea. But he says, okay, we'll come to your house. He didn't want to let the person down. So we get back in the car, we all drive to this person's house. Okay, we sit there, we go in the house. He says, you have to make dua in my house. So then dua is being made in the house. And then after dua is being made in the house, then Shaykh Zulfikar says, okay, we have to go now. We have to go give this talk. So the problem, not the problem, but the issue is that we have to give this talk. There has to be this talk that he's going to give. And right after the talk, then somebody else wants them to come to his house for lunch. So then we pick up everything. Like we would literally settle in a place for about 5 minutes and put ourselves back on the couch and just think that finally we're going to relax after 4 or 5 hours in the car, and we'd be right back in the car, like there was no moment to just even sit down and relax. So then we'd all pack up our stuff and we'd go back to this next person's house, and the family, the kids, the babies, everybody's getting packed up and put back into the cars, and then we get driven to the next place. So we go to the next, then Shaykh Zulfikar gives a talk, and when he gives a talk, these are small towns that nobody visits. That's what I found very intriguing. Time after time, he is going to places where he feels that there's a definite need, but there's a lack of people coming to visit those places because they're not the high yield. They're not the places where you go and there's just 5,000 people sitting in front of you, which you could easily create those types of environments within South Africa because of the size of the community. However, they're small masajid. Then he goes to one small masjid, he gives a talk. He goes to the next small masjid, he gives a talk. And house to house to house to house. There was probably not one time that we sort of stayed in a house for an extended period of time, except the night when it was time to rest. So time after time after time after time, we're squeezing out every opportunity. Okay, I'm extending this because I'm bringing this to a couple points that happen. So the next day, so then we go from place to place to place to place to place. There must have been at least 3 or 4 masajid. And many more than that houses, at least maybe 8, 9 houses. Then the next day, we have to leave from one house, and we sort of got to this point where we were at a house, and that house was close to the national park. What is it? The Kruger National Park. Now, Kruger National Park is a major game reserve in South Africa that is essentially naturally preserved place where you basically go and drive through the reserve. It's just a huge, hundreds of miles wide and hundreds of miles long. And all these natural wildlife, they live in there. Rhinoceros, lion, tiger, cheetah, elephant, giraffe, zebra, impala. Impala is a type of deer, etc., etc. Hyenas, just the whole natural wildlife is there. But if you want to visit Kruger National Park, you don't just you're at this house and you just kind of drive through to go to the next house, right? You have to spend days there. In fact, I had researched this before we had gone because one of the things, I'm going to South Africa. I want to see safari. This is like something that is unique, so it's an opportunity. I really would like to see this. And I had found out in advance that people they go for 8, 9 days. They book they have these places that you can live in the national park, and you stay there for days on end. And what you do is, the way these safaris work is you have this goal, and it's called seeing the big 5. They call them the big 5: the rhino, the elephant, the hyena, the lion, etc. They have these things, the big 5, and your goal is to see the big 5. It's a big deal if you see the big 5, and you spend days searching for the big 5, hoping to get a sighting. And what you do is you go there and you settle yourself in sort of the best part of the park for that time of year. So, this is hundreds of miles wide and hundreds of miles long, and you make a plan that I'm going to go to the northeast section of the park because it happens to be the winter, and that's where the animals have migrated at that time. And number 2, when you go there, you stay there and you share with each other the information. So whenever you see somebody, you say to them, what have you seen? And then they tell you, I saw rhinoceros at this point. I saw elephant at this point. I saw one cheetah at this point. I saw one zebra at that point. Then you go there that day and you try to make the sighting. So you're very dependent on the people that you're seeing, who have been there for days, and you stay there for days as well. So anyway, I'm looking at the plan and finding that this is the way that people do it. And every time I tell somebody, everybody in South Africa is saying, oh, are you going to go for safari? Are you going to go for safari? And I'm saying, yes, we're going for safari for 4 hours. And everybody's saying, for 4 hours? What kind of safari are you going to do in 4 hours? And then they say, okay, where are you going to enter? And we say, we're entering at the east part near this Venda or wherever we had ended up. And they said, no, this isn't the place you have to go. You have to go to the other side. This is winter. No animals are going to be there. That doesn't make any sense. You have to be on that side. So I'm just quiet. I don't say anything. I'm just thinking, quiet. We came to just be with Shaykh Zulfikar. So what do I care what I see and what I don't see? It's fine. We're just in the car with him. It's the opportunity of a lifetime just to sit in his company. So we get up very early. So he tells us the night before, he says, the animals, they get very excited at Fajr time. This is what he's saying to us. They get very excited at Fajr time. So we have to be in the park at Fajr time. Because this is the time that the animals, they like to eat and go out and they come out. It's a very natural time for them to be out. So I'm thinking, fine, we have to be there by Fajr time, but how? You got family with you, you got kids with you. It's going to be very difficult. Anyway, we all get up very early. We all get up very early and we pray Fajr as early as we can. However, we're still like an hour and a half away from that place. So by the time we get there, it's past Fajr time. So now also, you miss this window of a once in a lifetime chance to go through this safari park. So we get there and then, Shaykh Zulfikar is sitting in the car and he's telling us about the different animals and the different trips he's made. And we are driving, and right when we get into the park, we see another jeep coming this way, the other way. And we stop, every time we would see a jeep, we would stop them. And because these people have been there for days. And we would say, what have you seen? So we had a driver who was Shaykh Zulfikar's host, and the first time we got there, the person lowered his window, and then we said, what did you see? He said, I haven't seen anything. Not even a rat. And we're thinking, what? Not even a rat? Okay, great. This guy's been here. He hasn't even seen a rat. And anyway, we keep driving, and as soon as we get into the park, we drive for about 10 minutes, and we're looking. All of a sudden, a herd of elephants comes by. Big herd of elephants, and everyone's looking at the elephants. And subhanAllah, these elephants are just walking around. They're eating. They're ripping the branches off the trees, and we're just looking at the elephants, and Shaykh Zulfikar's pointing and telling us about the elephant and talking about the elephant and telling all the details. He's very, very excited that this is such a beautiful creation of Allah. These are the characteristics of the elephant. This is the way the elephant kills. This is the way he eats. This is how much trees he destroys. This is how much he can weigh. So, we see these elephants, but they're a little far away, mind you, but still they're there. So it's like a real sighting. So, then we continue driving. We continue driving, and thinking that okay, so we have seen elephants, alhamdulillah, and then we're looking, and within 5 minutes, then we see a group of hyenas, and nobody sees hyenas. Hyenas, very rare to see the hyena. A group of hyenas just crossing the road right in front of us. The road, not even in the jungle, from a distance with the binoculars. Just crossing the road right in front of us, a group of hyenas. And every time we stop somebody, we ask them, what have you seen? Everybody's saying the same thing. We didn't see anything. We didn't see anything. We're seeing elephant. We see hyenas. Then, then Shaykh Zulfikar is saying, we still need to see this and this and this. And all of a sudden we go a little bit further, and then we see a cub of lions, group of lions. Just the baby lion, the mother lion, and then the baby lions. And also just crossing the street right in front of them. We're all looking, shocked. Our head is out, heads are out the window. Everybody's looking. Everybody's just amazed that these animals are coming right before us. And over and over and over again, we're seeing animals and animals and animals. And then we got to this point where maybe we had been an hour into the park, and a very, very interesting thing happened. We went to then Shaykh Zulfikar. He said that we should pull over here and we should have breakfast, because we hadn't had breakfast yet. So we should eat breakfast here. It's a little rest area, and it's kind of netted in so that no animals can come into that rest area. So he says we should eat breakfast here. But he never said we should eat breakfast. He would always say, "Do you think we should eat breakfast now?" He'd ask everybody, and we'd say, "Well, Hazrat, whatever you say, we eat breakfast whenever you want to eat breakfast." He says, "Okay, this is a good place to eat breakfast." So literally, we sit down in the corner to eat breakfast, and a big herd of elephants comes. And they're just watching us eat breakfast. Now, are we watching them or are they watching us? That can be debated. Big herd of elephants. And what I vividly remember, actually, right before that, there was this Chinese or Japanese guy. I don't know, Chinese or Japanese, what he was. But he had a camera, and he had a long zoom lens. He was dressed like one of those, National Geographic people. He had a camera with a long lens hanging from his chest, like hanging over his neck. And we specifically had asked him, right when we parked over there, we specifically asked him, have you seen anything? And he said, I haven't seen anything in days. And then Hazrat goes, Bichara, poor guy. The guy came with a big camera and he didn't even see anything. And just literally he's in the parking lot, leaving with his big camera, and we're driving in and we sit down, and then this big herd of elephants. And we ate breakfast for at least 30 minutes, and for 30 minutes they're just playing over there. They're just playing. And literally our table is here, and the backdrop is elephants walking in the jungle. And you see them, they're just walking around, playing it, just clear sight. You don't even have to make any effort. You're just eating breakfast and you're casually just eating and looking, eating and looking. So we're sitting there, we're just relaxing, and I'm thinking in my own mind, poor Chinese guy, he can't see anything, and he should have stayed with us. He would have seen a lot. And then we're sitting, and we eat breakfast. And then at the very end, we had just finished breakfast and we're about to get up, a big herd of zebras came. Big, beautiful herd of zebras. And they're also walking just casually, very close to us, not far away, just amazingly close. The zebras are walking and we're sitting, and Shaykh Zulfikar is talking about the Jamal of Allah and how beautiful these animals are, and how every zebra's stripes are different. Like the fingerprint on a human being, everybody has a different pattern on their fingers. Every zebra's pattern of stripes is different. So Hazrat is talking about reminding us about the beauty of Allah, the blessings of Allah, the incredible ability of Allah to create. And we get back in the car, and now it's 10, 11 in the morning, and now is not the time to make any more sightings. Sightings should be all done. But the driver says, Hazrat, do you think I should turn off the road a little bit? Do you think I should turn off and go into this part? And, you can turn off the road, but you're not going to really see much at that time. So he says, okay, turn off the road. So we turn off the road, and just, dozens of impala. These beautiful animals jumping and running, just right when you turn off the road. And then we go a little bit further, and another herd of elephants. So much so that the elephant's standing right in front of the car. And Hazrat is telling the driver, be careful. If you scare him, he'll crush the car. He's that close. And Hazrat is warning him that if you don't back up slowly and you frighten this elephant, he'll crush the car with just his foot like that. So that's how close the elephants came. We're in this small little trail. Then we pull off to the side, and right when we pull off to the side, rhinos sleeping, not rhinoceros, hippopotamus. Hippopotamus sitting all in the riverbed. And crocodiles sitting right next to them. Some crocodiles just scattered just right there. And we're just sitting and looking, subhanAllah, all this just live right before us. And I would say, moment after moment after moment, we're seeing animals. So then, one person in our group said, Hazrat, we didn't see giraffe. So he said, no, inshallah, we will see giraffe. We will see giraffe. Giraffe will come to see us, don't worry. So we drive a little bit further, and then, subhanAllah, giraffe are standing right there. 4 or 5 giraffe eating. And he's telling us the whole story about the giraffe, and he's telling us that, how the giraffe drinks. The giraffe, he doesn't have the ability to bend his knees. So he makes his legs like this, and he puts his head down like that. And then we're watching. The giraffe puts his legs out like this, and puts his head down like that, and drinks. So just amazing, one after another. I can tell you that the ajib thing is, we saw so many animals that we got bored of the animals. At the very end, we were going out of the park, and this is 3 hours, 3-4 hours. At the end, we're going out of the park, and there, elephant after elephant is standing on the way. And at one point, one big, huge elephant came and blocked the road. Just at the very end while we're exiting. And we have to wake up the people in the car. Look, there's an elephant. They're like, we already saw the elephant. What are you talking about? We've already seen all the elephants. SubhanAllah, that's how many animals we saw in such a short period of time. So I'm sitting and thinking, SubhanAllah, did we see the animals, or did the animals come to see us? Because that was not expected, to see that many animals in that short period of time. Even the people who had been there for days had made those kind of sightings. We happened to pull over in a rest area, and they were marking the sightings, and I'm looking, they put one tack, I saw one. Somebody put, they have these tacks. And you put the tack where you saw the animal. So one person, I saw a hyena over here, there's one tack. I saw a giraffe over here, there's one tack. I saw a lion over here, there's one tack. And we did not travel all those distances where all those tacks were.
Yet we were able to see so many of those animals, subhanAllah. And, you think about it, it's interesting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when a person achieves nearness to Allah, basically the derivative of this is actually the hadith. That when a person attains nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts love in the heart of creation for that individual. And very, very clearly written in hadith, that when there's an individual that achieves closeness to Allah through their nafilah, through their supererogatory actions, supererogatory fasting, supererogatory salah, supererogatory Quran recitation, supererogatory sadaqah, when that person uses a supererogatory means to achieve closeness to Allah, there comes a point when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes an announcement to creation, to the angels, that I love such and so, so you should love such and so. And it clearly comes in hadith, Sahih hadith, that announcement is then made to the angels such that all of creation, it is announced to all of creation that, O creation, Allah loves such and so, so you too should love such and so, until that message is delivered to the bottom of the sea. The fish at the bottom of the sea make dua for that person. So, this is the effect on creation of a human being serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Making every moment of their life in the service of Allah. You don't even have to chase creation. Creation will chase you. And it wasn't that the animals were chasing us. It was people were chasing us. Every place we went, hundreds of people coming from out of nowhere, wanting to shake the hand of Shaykh Zulfikar. Or just ask for his dua, or ask for him to stop at the store and spend time. And he would acknowledge every single person. In fact, at one point, he told us, he said that, I've never told this to anybody before. We were talking with him and we were saying that, how basically we got to a point where we were really tired. We were really tired of just driving and visiting people and going to people's houses, and they make you eat what they put in front of you and you have to make them happy. And we were just tired, especially we're travelers. And we said to Shaykh Zulfikar, how do you do this? We've been with you for 2 days. How do you do this? You do this every single day. And I'll tell you that not only does he do it every single day, I'm thinking the context in which he does it. Look, we show up, right? And he goes to a city. Let's say he goes to Venda, which is a small city. Those people are waiting for him for 1 month. And when he comes into the city, with that much excitement, they want to take him here and do this and do that and do this and do that. Now when he's done, they totally wrung him out like a wet rag. They dropped every drop of juice that they could out of him. And then what? They go to sleep. They rest, they recover from that. But he goes to the next city, and the next city, the people are waiting with that much more enthusiasm. Because they heard from the people of Venda what happened, and they're expecting much more. So he goes from place to place to place, and everybody squeezes the juice out of him. And he's just being pushed here and pushed there and pushed here and pushed there. And I'm thinking, how does he do this? In 2 days we were totally fatigued. 2 days we were totally fatigued. Yet place after place, not only are the animals coming, the people are coming. The people are coming and with their problems and their issues and problems and issues. And they pull them aside and they need to discuss this and discuss that, and this person needs to discuss this. And time after time after time, he gives his time for the people. I'll just give you one more example now. There's so little time because of the shortness of the day. But anyway, so at the very end, we are deciding where we should come out of the park. Now, you drive into the park and then you have to come out of the park, and there's certain entrances and exits. So we're making a decision about where we're going to come out of the park, and we're really tired by this time. And this was really probably the end of our journey. In fact, we were supposed to come out of the park and then make another 5-hour drive to go back to Johannesburg just to close off that 2-day loop. Now, the next morning was again another flight to a whole other adventure, right? But just to close off that 2-day loop. So we're particularly tired, and it's already pretty late at night. We've been in a car for many, many hours. We had already driven 30 plus hours, and now we have driven another, 5-6 hours through the park, and we're exiting the park finally. And then we get a phone call that there's a brother who knows that you're nearby and would like you to stop over and make dua at his house. I'm thinking there's no way. We're in dua at his house, he can come and meet us and we'll make dua in the car. But we're not, how are we? So Shaykh Zulfikar says, no, we should go. We have a little bit of free time, we should go. So we go out of the way a little bit, and then we stop at this person's house. When we get to this person's house, he has no idea who Shaykh Zulfikar is. He just heard that there was a righteous, pious person, and he wants that person to make dua. So Shaykh Zulfikar sits with the family a little bit and quickly begins to learn that there are some issues, with the family. The family has some issues with various, difficulties in life, and they're having trouble dealing with the environment around them, and they're trying to become more righteous, but they need some convincing. He quickly gauges this. Now, this isn't like we're going to the house of the most pious person in the city. This was like a group of people that really needed help. So we're sitting at the dinner table. So they had prepared dinner for us. We're sitting at the dinner table, and all of a sudden he starts telling a story. So, and I didn't know the context because I didn't know where we were sitting, and I didn't know the situation. But I just wondered, why is he telling this story? This is like a very different kind of story. So he says that the story was that in historically, there was a city that was made up of multiple islands. They have these nation states where you have these small little islands, and there's multiple. It's like in one nation, but each island represents a different city in that nation. So he said that the way by which people would move around in this nation state would be that everything would be by boat. So you'd be at one location and you'd go on boat to go to the next location, and then you'd go on boat to go to the next location. So the school was on one island. The school where the students would study was on one island. So on one day, the students from the school were taking the boat back from the school to the city where they lived. And the students, they started looking at the person who was the sailor, who was driving the boat, who was commanding the boat, and they started making jokes with the sailor. Now these were students, and they felt themselves to be very prepared for life because they were learning mathematics and they were learning science and these types of subjects. So one of the students said to the sailor, he said, "Have you studied arithmetic?" And the sailor started looking at him and saying, "Arithmetic? What are you talking about? What is arithmetic? I'm just a simple person." So then the kids all started laughing. "Ha ha ha ha, you don't know anything. You didn't study arithmetic. You don't know anything." And then one of the kids very loudly said, "You wasted half of your life." And everybody started laughing. You know how kids make these kind of jokes. Then the next kid started saying, "Oh, did you study?" Now they saw that they had this guy. So they said, "Oh, did you study chemistry?" He says, "Oh, what's chemistry?" So they're laughing. Then another kid says, "You wasted half of your life." Then the third kid, they're all joking and laughing and making a mockery of this individual. So the third kid says, "Did you study political science?" He says, "Political science? What are you talking about? I'm just trying to make my ends meet. I'm just a sailor. I feed my family." And they're laughing. And they say that you wasted half of your life. Then all of a sudden, while they're on their way back to the city, the clouds become very dark. The sky becomes very dark and clouds all of a sudden appear. Now, sometimes very quickly the weather can change. So the weather changes and the boat now is being pushed back and forth a little bit because very quickly waves begin to develop in the sea. So the boat's being thrown from left to right, and very, very quickly people are very, very fearful. So the sailor, he sees the boys. He looks at the boys, and the boys are very quiet now. Of course, they were very jovial before. They're very quiet and they're very concerned. So he looks at them and he says, "Does any of you know how to swim? Do any of you know how to swim?" And none of them knew how to swim. So he looked at them and he said, "You wasted your whole life." And from that, Shaykh Zulfikar Shaykh Zulfikar sort of derived a point when he was telling them this story that, look, essentially the reality of life is that what you deem to be important to prepare you for life, there may be that there comes a day when that stuff is useless and something else would be necessary, right? Now these kids thought chemistry and physics and political science had prepared them for a very specific life. However, if there comes a time when the environment changes, then all of a sudden what you prepared may not be what is actually needed. Now, we all have prepared for this life. We're making money, we're educating ourselves, we're establishing ourselves here, but there's going to come a day when we're in the grave. And what we thought was preparation may actually turn out to be empty pockets, right? Because if we don't know how to swim when we're thrown in that sea, then we're really in big trouble. So when we go in our grave, which is a guarantee for everybody, If we don't know how to swim there, if we didn't prepare for there, we're in major trouble. So Shaykh Zulfikar, in a very eloquent way, it was very eloquent, as I can never recapitulate the mechanism by which within 5 minutes he changed the whole attitude of the table. Because then they started thinking that we spent so much time in our businesses, but what did we prepare for our hereafter? We spent so much time educating ourselves and preparing ourselves in this life, but what if we prepared for the hereafter? When the reality of our existence actually is the hereafter. So, from that very, very simple story, people's lives, I saw people's lives change. And in fact, when we got in the car, then those people said, you have to come to our business to make dua. So we actually got back in the car, we stopped at another last place, and then Shaykh Zulfikar went inside, he made dua, and then he came back in the car. And when we came back in the car, I said to Shaykh Zulfikar, I said, Hazrat, this was kind of a little bit of a different gathering. You usually, if you want to say something religious, you go out and say something religious. You quote a few ayat and then you give them that. And he said, well, you have to feed people what they're ready to eat. And this group of people, they were on a little bit of a different playing field. So I needed to present them something that was a little bit different. But I can tell you that the seed that I planted today will definitely create a change in their family over time. Now, I don't know because I haven't gone back and seen their family, but when I've heard him say that type of thing, I've seen it with my own eyes. Years later, you see a change. So, he went there, he made an effort, he planted a seed, and inshallah that seed over time will grow and that family will change and will better themselves. But this was what the trip was all about. It was like hand-to-hand combat. Hand-to-hand combat, you go to one person's house, despite the fact that there's 3 million people in the city, and you give an opportunity to make an effort on that person. But you take it, because it's an opportunity from Allah, and you happily take it. You don't look for the huge gatherings and the huge opportunities and to try to put on the show of something occurring. You're sitting there, dealing with people one-on-one, changing people's lives. And that was what the trip was about. And that's what that's what the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do. They use every moment. SubhanAllah, there was not a wasted moment. There was not a wasted moment. Every moment was used to do something. Whether it was seeing Allah's creation or serving Allah's creation. I'm telling you, there was not like any time we just kicked back and relaxed. Everything was planned and an effort was made. And this was just like 2 days of a 16-day trip, right? And I'm just very, very quickly summarizing what happened in the first maybe 2 days, 2.5 days. But this is what the people of Allah are all about. They don't waste a moment. They take every minute to serve Allah. They take it as an opportunity to achieve a nearness to Allah. And the consequences of that are that humanity and all of creation falls in love with them. So I don't think that it was random that in that short period of time we saw so much. Everybody we told, even the people who we got out at that gate where we went to this house and he told this story about the different islands, even those people were shocked. They said, we live right by this gate. We've never seen elephants standing blocking the gate. And there was an elephant right there, standing in front of the gate as we were leaving. And I was saying he was probably blocking us from leaving. They were saying, don't leave, don't leave. Just like all the people in the other cities would be grabbing, saying, don't leave, don't leave. It was just ajib. It was just ajib. I saw it with my own eyes. You read these things in the books of the awliya. I saw it with my own eyes what that was the biggest elephant. I saw what he did. And they don't just stand in the middle of the road like that. The big road where people are crossing. It's not huge. It's probably as big as the alley, the ICC alley, maybe a little wider than that. But still, it's a major throughway to get to the national park. But that's what happens when people become close to Allah. Allah puts the love of creation within them. Now you see in this day and age, there's so much talk about, we need to change, the people around us are attacking us and criticizing us and Islamophobia this and Islamophobia that. That's because we haven't created the circumstance to create love in the hearts of people. Look, we can scream and yell and we can make movies and songs and these types of things and say these are the things that are going to change what people think about Islam. That's one way to do it. Another way is the angels are screaming from the heavens. You have to love these people. That's another way to do it. Which way do you think is more effective? I'm certain that if the angels were screaming from the heavens that this group of people, Allah loves them, so you must love them as well, people would have no choice but to surrender to that. They would say, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I just love these people. I can't figure out myself what's in me, but I just have a love for these people. So that's like the broad lesson that we gain. That if you want, on an individual basis, if you want the creation to love you. You want your family to love you. You want your loved ones to really love you. You want the community to really love you. And you want to create that love within the community. That love is a derivative of the love of Allah. That's a derivative of the love of Allah. It's not a derivative of the love of dunya. Now you see the vast majority of people, they create love based on dunya. I dress a certain way so these people love me. I drive a BMW or this or that and so these people love me. I have a certain lifestyle. People come to my house and have the biggest screen TV out of everybody. They love me. These are my friends. They don't love you. They love your things. The moment your big screen TV goes, your friends will go someplace else. The moment your wealth goes, your friends will go with that. The moment you hang up your suit in the closet, your friends will go after the suit. It's not a love of you. It's a love of the things that you adorned yourself with artificially. This is a real love. This is a real love where people love you because Allah puts it in their heart. And people love you because, and even to the extent that the animals begin to fall in love. I mean, you don't see this. It's very rare in this day and age for people to have developed that type of relationship with Allah. Now, the purpose of this is not to, tell a story of something that passed, but it's a understanding that we should have in our hearts that if we want to create that love in this community and outside of this community, it comes through attaching ourselves to Allah. We should abundantly fill our times with ibadah. We should spend our free time in ibadah. We should spend our free time serving others. Our wealth should be for other people, not for ourselves. Our time should be for the service of others and for the worship of Allah. We should fast abundantly and use that extra money and time to do good deeds. When a person fasts, they have so much more free time in the day because they don't waste their time circling around food. And when a person fasts, they save a particular amount of money that they could easily use to feed 5, 7, 10 families sometimes. So this is the cloak of righteousness. And that's the result of it. And we have examples even in this day and age. Now you think about Sahaba and the Prophet ﷺ and how much we love them in this so far away. You fall in love with a person that you don't even know. He's a totally different culture than you, a totally different time than you, a totally different language than you. And we want to learn his language and act like him and dress like him and eat like him. Does it make any sense? Where in history? Show me historically, even the communists don't dress like Lenin. They don't just do that, They've got their own. They're in a whole other world, and yet you have a continuous generation after generation after generation, spanning time and distance. You go to Bosnia, you go to India, you find the same thing. People wanting to emulate Rasulullah ﷺ, people wanting to know what the companions did. Everybody, no matter what language it is, you hear Bosnian, Abu Bakr radiallahu an, Umar radiallahu an. And then you go to, another masjid where they speak Urdu, they're speaking. You pick up the word Abu Bakr radiallahu an, Umar radiallahu an, Rasulullah ﷺ. These are the words that are just, these are the strings that tie together vast amounts of geography over vast spans of time. And so this is the secret to success. There is no greater example. There is no greater example in the history of man. No greater example. Not within the communities of the prophets and not within the communities of movements. It's all based on love. It's all based on the love of Allah. Those people were focused on Allah. Believe me, they were not doing their deeds to please us today. If they were, they would have been washed away with the sands of time. Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr. By time people are in loss. They get washed away. Time washes away the sands of memory. But those people were people of righteousness. And Allah put such a deep love, that even in this day and age, people go crazy over the name of Rasulullah ﷺ, to visit Rasulullah ﷺ. Nobody would do Hajj without going to Medina. You give a Hajj seminar, people say, where's Medina? Why didn't you talk about Medina? People ask me, why did you rush through Medina? I rushed to Medina because there's no time. Well, you can't do that. You have to take the time from Medina. SubhanAllah. I mean, this is the consequence of love. The consequence of love, of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so strong that when a group of people who love Allah stand on the earth becomes a piece of Jannah. Such lovers of Allah, Sahaba and Rasulullah ﷺ, stood on Medina Sharif, so that piece of Medina where they prayed became Rawdatul Jannah. Now we wait in line to pray in there. Now we wait in line and pray in there in these days. That's the effect of the love of Allah. That's the effect of the obedience and making one's life for the sake of Allah. That piece of earth becomes piece of Jannah. SubhanAllah. then there's no other piece of earth that will be preserved. Allah will cut that piece of land out and destroy the rest of the world and put that into Jannah. Ajib. Ajib. Just think about for a minute what we're saying. That Allah will cut that piece of earth out before destroying what was intended to be destroyed and raised to dust and put that piece of earth in Jannah. Amazing. It's amazing. What other example do you need? This is the consequence of the love of Allah. We should become the lovers of Allah. We should become people who approach Allah, who spend their time in extra ibadah, in the spending of their wealth, in the spending of their time, in fasting, in praying throughout the night to the best of our ability, in making our purpose Allah and Allah alone. And the examples are here all the way up till this day and age.